Video game adaptations have been a huge prevalent part in media in this day and age. There has always been debate about whether or not video games are the right thing to adapt into film. And that's mostly due to the fact that a lot of movies based on video games aren't really that good. With the release of a certain video game adaptation coming out very soon, and one based on one of my all-time favorite franchises, I think it's now time to take a look at one of the most interesting adaptations of all time. That's right. In celebration of the Sonic movie sequel, it's time to talk about a video game adaptation to help set up one of the most anticipated movie to game adaptations of all time. It's time to talk about the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Cause Sonic is a Mario game. Yeah, April Fools once again. And while this time I actually don't have a review planned for the first Sonic movie this month, I did want to take a look at this Mario movie. Not just because of the one coming out later in December this year, but if you watched my last video I made for April Fools, you might have noticed that I mentioned something in particular when talking about the experience I had renting the Tom and Jerry movie from Blockbuster. And there are two distinct times where I remember this exact thing happening to me as a young, impressionable kid. And that was for the Super Mario Bros. Movie. The Super Mario Bros. Movie. Well, I certainly set myself up for that one. But hey, it'll make for a good video topic. But before I get to the movie itself, let's talk about the portly plumber this cinematic experience is based on.
It's me, Mario!
What can you say about Mario? He's possibly the most recognizable video game character of all time, and for good reason. He's been part of so many great influential games that helped make the medium of video gaming what it is today. People are very eager to see what Illumination has in store for this character with their film adaptation later this year, me included, for better or for worse.
Donkey Kong will also be making an appearance. He will be played by Seth Rogen.
But before the idea of Mario characters having celebrity voices in a movie by the guys who made the Minion was even a thought process, there was once a Mario movie back in the 90s. Not only was this the first Mario movie, but it's actually the first video game adaptation out there. Sure, there were movies like Tron and the Wizard, but nothing based on something that originated from a game. So this Mario movie was going to be something to look out for. Though probably not, since this movie is considered to be the basis of why most video game adaptations turn out not so good. As many would argue that video games have never had a good movie adaptation. Even in 1993, this was considered a disappointment. But I wasn't aware of that when I first saw this movie. When I was a kid and was at Blockbuster and saw that they actually made a Mario Brothers movie, I was honestly interested. I mean, I love movies and I love video games, and seeing something like the Mario Brothers into a bigger, grander film of sorts is something I hope to be good. I didn't hear anyone talk about this movie beforehand, so there wasn't any sort of expectation outside of it being a movie that I'll like because it's based on something that I dig. But Lord and behold, I was not prepared for the experience of watching this movie. Like Tom and Jerry, Super Mario Bros. Movie was a movie that wasn't anything of what I expected at all, but maybe to a worse degree than even the cinematic appearance of my favorite cat and mouse duo. What made these brothers' theatrical debut such an interesting experience? Well, let's dive into what made the Super Mario Bros. Movie a movie unlike anything else. So let's go back to the Tom and Jerry movie real quick. That movie suffered from not being anything like its source material, but I didn't really take notice of it watching it as a kid at first, till about a good 10 minutes in. Let's see how long it takes the Mario Brothers movie to showcase how it's not really a proper video game adaptation, and if they show any promises as well. Okay, that's That's actually something neat. The original music for the classic NES game. Why wouldn't it be on here? I know it may not sound like much, but considering how many movies that tend to forget to put their own iconic theme song in, it's nice to see that they at least remember to start off the movie with something very iconic to the games. And it is the first video game movie, so you gotta at least give them credit for sticking with the original NES version. Off to a great start. Let's see how the rest of the movie fares.
A long, long time ago, the Earth was ruled by dinosaurs.
Yeah, how long are we into this movie again? 45 seconds. That's great. That's great. This is so f***ing great. You know, I have to give some slack to Tom and Jerry the movie. They gave us time. They at least tried to seemingly give us the movie we expected within the first 10 minutes of the damn film. Here, they don't even waste your time. They don't even give you a minute to let us know that we're not in for what we expected. You want a movie adaptation about the Super Mario Brothers? Okay, here you go. 45 f***ing seconds in, and here's a movie all about f***ing dinosaurs.
You know, it just don't get no better than this.
What the f***? What a bizarre way to open a movie like this. It's so jarring that you might ignore the actual backstory the film gives you about these dinosaurs as told by the blue-haired lawyer from The Simpsons.
What if the dinosaurs weren't all destroyed? What if the impact of that meteorite created a parallel dimension where the dinosaurs continue to thrive and evolve into intelligent, vicious, aggressive beings? What if they found a way back?
Yeah, Super Mario Brothers. This totally was what I was expecting. We then cut the present day where we see a lady holding an egg dropping it off at a church. We then shortly realize that she's being chased by none other than Donald Trump? I mean, to be fair, I'd be pretty terrified too if Donald Trump was trying to catch me for whatever reason. But actually no, this is supposed to be King Koopa. Or in this case, just Koopa. Why isn't he a dragon creature in this? I don't know, because I'll be here all day trying to figure that shit out. We later see that this egg actually contains a human baby. Okay, that's weird. And then we shortly get our introduction to the Mario Brothers in this movie. They're not Italian, but they are indeed plumbers, which they focus on a lot more in this movie than they do in the actual game.
Luigi, we got a broken dishwasher at the Riverfront Cafe. You know what that means? Yeah. We got Mike.
Maybe it was trying to be more of an adaptation of the Mario Brothers arcade game, but who knows. In this movie, they're portrayed by Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo. In other words, Mario and Luigi are played by Boris the Goose and Sid the Sloth.
Pine cones!
And there's a lot to say about this casting. Starting with Leguizamo. I'll be honest, I don't think he was a good fit for Luigi at all. I get what they're doing here by making him the younger brother, but I don't know. I look at John Leguizamo and I don't really see him as this character. He doesn't really do anything that helped characterize Luigi that well. Where Luigi later on became the second-hand kind of cowardly character of the series, this movie makes him more like the generic lead. Something I'll get onto later with this film, but I don't think it was a good casting on their part. Oh well, at least John Leguizamo was able to give a much better performance years later with his work in Encanto as Bruno. We don't talk about Bruno! Right. Bob Hoskins, on the other hand, I actually kind of like seeing him in this role. Sure, he's not Italian either, but he gives up the rough Brooklyn-type caricature that Mario tends to be categorized in some adaptations.
Everybody's got tap water. $3.
The guy is so good in so many movies though, that it's always fun to see him in whether he plays a big part or not. When I see him later in this movie with the red outfit and overalls, I'm like, yeah, that's Mario. I totally buy Eddie Valiant with a mustache as a proper Mario, though I don't blame any of these actors for potentially being miscast. Not even Leguizamo, because the Super Mario Brothers movie is a rather infamous one to the entire cast and crew of this film. trouble production for big tentpole films is nothing really that new, and something we still tend to see often. Though, whenever it is, it's always a fascinating shit show to hear about. The Super Mario Bros. Movie had a terrible production history, with so many of the cast and crew speaking extremely negatively on the film, including Leguizamo and Hoskins. Hoskins has even stated on numerous occasions that working on this film was, and I quote, a nightmare. A lot went on with this production, from numerous script rewrites and a lot of miscommunication between the directors and cast, including the very infamous story where one of the directors intentionally poured coffee on an extra. So much went on in this production that I honestly can't do it justice, partially because I don't want to make this video longer than it already is. However, if you want a video that does talk in depth about the production of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, I highly recommend the Gaming Historian's video on the history of the Super Mario Bros. Movie. He does a great job at going into detail on the entire production of the movie. I'll put a link in the description below. Anyway, back to the Mario Bros. Movie. So, during a typical workday from the Mario Brothers, we get a look at this girl leading a group of paleontologists in New York City searching for dinosaur artifacts. We also see that this girl is being followed by a few goons hired by Koopa. Eventually, Mario and Luigi come across this girl, and we shortly find out that this character is actually the main female lead. That's right, this film's version of Princess...
Hi, it's Daisy.
Daisy?
Hi, I'm Daisy.
Yeah, that's one of the weirder decisions made for this film. That doesn't result in super baffling weird shit that has nothing to do with Mario, but for whatever reason, they decided to go with Daisy being the main damsel in distress in this film as opposed to the regular Princess Peach. Why did they do this? I actually don't know. Daisy wasn't even that well known of a character at this point, and even if she was, it's odd that they stuck with the second tier princess for this movie as opposed to the one everyone knows. The only reason I can think of is that she ends up getting with Luigi, making him be the one to have the main love interest. Makes sense for the character, but why not give some of that love to Mario? I mean, yeah, he does have another love interest in this film who's also kind of a cutie, but she's not really much of a character in this movie, and this person isn't even Peach. Why did they do this? Is it because John Leguizamo is considered a more attractive and marketable co-star compared to Bob Hoskins? If so, that's a little unfair. I mean, this is the guy who single-handedly found the person who framed Roger Rabbit. This guy deserves a lot more respect than given to him. After we see them go on a little date with one another, we see Daisy take Luigi to the site she's been searching at for dinosaur bones, only to find out that some of the pipes were sabotaged in the wreckage. They get the help of Mario to fix the pipes, only for Daisy to be kidnapped by the two goons we saw earlier, which leads Mario and Luigi to go after her. They are then transported to this alternate world you would think would be the fantastical Mushroom Kingdom. But in reality, it ends up being one of the many ideas of a dystopian future in the vein of Blade Runner. This is known as Dino City, a society run by human-lizard hybrid people that were created after the meteor that supposedly wiped out the dinosaurs created a parallel dimension where humans evolved from dinosaurs. A piece of that meteor is held captive by Daisy, as she was the baby in that egg we saw at the beginning of the film, and was granted the possession of that piece by her mom. Koopa, who is also the leader of Dino City, wants the rock for himself as it contains major value and power that would make him have more control, thus leading Koopa to be after Daisy, to be held hostage, and the Mario Brothers being the one to save her. All fine and dandy with that plot synopsis. There's just one tiny little problem with all of this. What does any of this shit have to do with the Super Mario Brothers? I mean, they got the surface level stuff down, but did they really expect that anyone would not take notice of these drastic changes to a game that everyone knows by now? I mean, the newest Mario game was Super Mario World at the time of this movie's release, and we even had a few cartoon shows that still replicate the concept fairly accurately in terms of the kind of world we would expect from Mario. I think the filmmakers were trying to do something in the vein of Batman and the Ninja Turtles, where it's a darker and grittier version that's trying to aim for a bit of an older audience. Also sprinkle in a little mix of Ghostbusters, with the kind of characters being more everyday average man types. With a lot of adult comedy mixed in with the supernatural sci-fi stuff. That might be okay, but there are certain franchises where that stuff kind of works. You can get away with that stuff in Batman and Ninja Turtles, given their status as badass characters, and even with their own movies, they didn't stray too far from the original source material. I mean, the setting was still contemporary in the comics, so when translating into live action, it's not as jarring seeing these characters in this environment. They didn't even try to make this world in the Mario Brothers movie replicate the fantastical world of the Mushroom Kingdom. You think it's jarring for fans of the games back then? How about in my situation? As I saw this movie back when the newest Mario game was Super Mario Sunshine. And I'll tell you, not once did I anticipate or expect watching a Mario Brothers movie where there's a scene where an old lady gets thrown off of a building, lands into a car, and electrocutes the driver. I didn't expect any of that, because I don't anticipate that kind of insanity with something like this. Though, you're probably wondering, another major thing about this film being an adaptation, what's with all the dinosaur shit? This movie has a strange obsession with dinosaurs, as they're the main focus of this movie, being essentially the main antagonist. They even have a cover of the song Walk the Dinosaur prominently featured in this film. It probably had something to do with the fact that there was a huge dinosaur craze back in the 90s with so many dinosaur related shows, games, and movies, with Jurassic Park coming out just a few weeks after this movie did. Though, there is one aspect of Mario that does relate to dinosaurs that could be another factor to this movie having a fixation on prehistoric creatures. That being, of course, Yoshi! Yeah, everyone's favorite little pet from the Mario universe, Yoshi. Yoshi is, technically speaking, in the universe of the Mushroom Kingdom, a dinosaur. And of course, he does make an appearance in this movie. And he looks like any other generic looking, not as cutesy sort of dinosaur. That's for sure. It's a decent animatronic, and it gets the core function of Yoshi, right? But even then, Yoshi was more of a distinct and different kind of dinosaur design-wise. But even taking all of that out of it, is Yoshi being a dinosaur a justifiable reason for making this entire Super Mario Brothers movie a dystopian sci-fi action comedy dealing with dinosaurs? I mean, imagine if they were to make a movie based on Metroid. You know, a game series that's a science fiction adventure filled with atmosphere meant to make you feel isolated with horror-like elements where you fight against aliens. What if instead of making a Metroid movie about that, they make it into the swashbuckling adventure filled with sailing on the high seas where Samus faces off against pirates? All because in the game, they use the term space pirates, making Ridley, the series' main antagonist, who's a giant beast, exactly that, a literal pirate. It would seriously make about as much sense as this movie right here. Though, maybe I'm being too harsh. I mean, while source accuracy is something important in an adaptation, I'm in the belief that just because an adaptation isn't necessarily faithful to the source material doesn't automatically mean that the movie itself is instantly bad. There have been plenty of adaptations that take liberties with their own source, but still turn out great for a variety of different reasons, even being better suited as its own thing. So, can the Super Mario Brothers movie stand on its own as a movie, taking out of its video game adaptation?
Do you know what I love about mud? It's clean and it's dirty at the same time.
Kind of. Sort of. Not really.
Let's go!
The Super Mario Brothers movie, I'll give credit where credit is due. It's a decently designed movie. For as inappropriate as this movie is as an adaptation, the world they did create for it is a cool looking one. It definitely takes a lot from movies like Blade Runner, and it makes sense since the production designer for this was the same one for Blade Runner. Not only that, but a lot of the sets and animatronics made for this movie are really well crafted, and they do at least fit the bizarre nature of this movie. Why the Goombas look nothing like the Goombas, I don't know. but they still are very creative creature designs, all things considered. However, where the movie falls apart is mostly with its overall script and directing. You can tell it is a bit of a shit show production, because a lot of the actors are given very over-the-top performances that don't seem like they have a lot of direction to them. As much as I love seeing Bob Hoskins here, I have to admit, his performance isn't the best, because most of the time he's just yelling out random words to the point where it's almost inaudible.
Hey, what is this?
All right, what do we...
And when it isn't, it just comes across as pointless Brooklyn yelling.
You're not gonna kill him, not if I get there first. I'm gonna break every bone in their body, and then I'm gonna kill him. I'm really gonna kill him.
Though one cannot talk about this movie without discussion of the true Oscar caliber performance that is Dennis Hopper, who isn't really playing Bowser here as he is just playing Donald Trump. When you look at his performance like that, it comes across as actually pretty great. And really, if Hopper was still around today, he would be the only reason I would have any sort of interest in a biopic about Donald Trump. God bless you, Dennis Hopper. For whatever it's worth, this is still one of your most memorable roles to me, alongside your performance in Blue Velvet.
Anything that moves!
It's a stupid performance, yes, but it is immensely entertaining to see this egotistical billionaire be as over the top of a villain that only Dennis Hopper can provide.
See you later, alligator.
It doesn't save the script, hell no. There's so many ridiculous moments that don't really mesh up together. This movie also has one of the dumbest scenes in movie history. You know how movies love to show you an explanation of something that didn't need one to begin with? Well, the Mario movie couldn't make anything look like it actually belongs in a Mario movie, but it sure gave us this scene.
Last name?
Mario.
Okay, what's your name?
Luigi Mario.
Okay, look, how many Marios are there between the two of you?
There's three. There's Mario, and Luigi Mario.
Mario is their last name, and that's why they call themselves the Mario Brothers. That might be the stupidest thing I have ever heard in a movie. It simplifies something that doesn't need an explanation, but just leads to more questions. Like, this jackass for so many years somehow got away with having the same first and last name? It might be a small moment, but it's such a ridiculous kind of scene, it can't just be ignored either. And I often question why the scene is here. Could you imagine if other movies did a stupid scene in the vein of this?
What's your name, son?
Mario.
Mario.
What? Who are your people?
Mario.
Mario. Mario.
Also, this movie manages to be fixated on a lot of odd aspects that weren't as focused on in the games, with a ton of fungus being around and Daisy's dad being this strange fungus creature, you know, like the Mushroom Kingdom. Get it? You get it? And you see other characters like Toad and Big Bertha even making an appearance. I mean, Toad, they at least got one thing right. He's annoying and pointless, just like in the games. And Big Bertha leads to one of the most infamous parts of this movie, and that's another issue this film has. It wants to be kind of this family-friendly kids film, but at the same time, it's filled with a lot of adult jokes. I mean, this was the 90s, so films can kind of get away with being PG and more risky, but those kind of things are very surreal to see in a Mario movie, especially with this iconic shot. Whoa, whoa, yo! I take back what I said about Bob Hoskins not getting action in this film. That money shot alone has got him set for days. So during all these strange action sequences not fitting to Mario, we eventually get a final confrontation between Koopa and Mario, leading to them getting transported back into the real world. And that also ends up leading to... Look! Definitely not something that would be seen as incredibly dated and odd to see today. Hush, quick! Here's King Koopa turning someone into a chimpanzee.
Monkey.
Which, I'm gonna be incredibly honest, when I first saw this movie, I actually interpreted this chimp to be this movie's version of Donkey Kong, which I don't think you can really blame me. I mean, you might as well, considering how everything else in this movie represents the original games. So yeah, this chimp is this universe's own Donkey Kong. Cause why not? Also, I love how the audience reaction is just that they laugh and be like, oh, what a cute little monkey, and not be completely disturbed by the fact that Donald Trump from another dimension just came and turned this innocent man into a monkey. Then again, I shouldn't question the logic behind a movie like this. Mario and Koopa get transported back into their other dimension, and they put the final blow on Koopa by reverting him back to his original being, where he goes from Donald Trump to actually trying to resemble Bowser for a change. But too little, too late. The Mario Brothers save the day, and then they have to go home. But unfortunately for Luigi, Princess Daisy is left behind. Why? Well, she is the princess after all, so she has to be here for her people. But it isn't too big of a deal, as the Mario Brothers still end up going back home, and they're seen as being celebrated as heroes. Until...
Luigi, Mario!
Daisy!
You're never gonna believe this.
I believe it. You do?
Yeah, that's how the movie ends. It was a movie that was somehow confident that it was going to get a sequel to end on a cliffhanger. I mean, what did they even have planned for a sequel to this? The world will probably never know, as this cliffhanger is one of those infamous ones that sets up a movie that never ended up happening. There's no restoring the Snyderverse treatment for the world of Mario Brothers. Granted, there is something regarding this movie in the form of a director's cut. Fans of this movie ended up restoring an original cut of this film that's 20 minutes longer and does provide some things that are different. At least a little bit more context of what this movie's all about, and also other things like a different intro using different footage of dinosaurs and no narration by Dana Castellaneta. I mean, it still doesn't make for that good of a movie, and still isn't a good adaptation of the Mario Brothers, but it's something, I guess. I guess something had to be done to respect the wishes of directors Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel, who, get this, they haven't directed a movie since the Super Mario Bros. Movie. This film was deemed so bad that even the directors still haven't made another movie due to how much of a nightmare that working on this film was. It's crazy when we see other directors given second chances despite what bad movies they might have brought on us. I guess that's just proof that the universe of the Mario Bros. Movie was just not meant to be, meaning we'll never see what exciting plans they had in store for whatever fever dream they wanted to share with us for future installments. Yeah, this movie isn't really worthy of this music. But I guess I'll conclude with what the Mario Brothers movie really brought us. If nothing else, the Super Mario Brothers movie was the first in line of video game adaptations. However, that isn't considered the best thing when the Mario movie was not only a bad first attempt, but it kind of gave a bit of a curse to video game movies as a whole, as since then there have been a lot more video game movies, and to be honest, most of them suck. They often tend to have a similar issue to the Mario movie, where they don't even attempt to replicate what the games are all about, and instead being whatever the hell schlock some writer thought of. Also doesn't help that they haven't given a lot of proper talent with these movies, hiring poor directors like Uwe Ball, and not by people who actually care about video games themselves. That said, there have been some improvements recently. Not to say that all recent video game movies are 100% better than back then. I mean, even when we get movies that stay more faithful to the source material, they still tend to fall short. Many tend to say that because of the nature of video games being very hard to adapt, and therefore it's impossible to make a very good movie out of them. There's definitely a challenge of bringing something that's known for being an interactive experience into a full-fledged narrative story that's just film it. To say it's impossible though, I would disagree. I think video game movies have so much potential to be created into movies and shows due to all the world building and characters a lot of these games are known for now. They just need the right talent and mindset of making an experience that's similar to the game in spirit, but still works as a film or a show. And to a great extent, I feel like we're getting there. Like I said, it's not perfect, but look at the shows that have come out based on video games that do manage to pull off a compelling narrative while being faithful to their source material, like Castlevania, Cuphead, and Arcane, to name a few. Even something like Detective Pikachu managed to stand out as being its own thing while still managing to appeal to the fans of the game by expanding upon its universe and characters, while also not being too alienated from the source material. And there's even potential this coming month with Sonic 2. The first might have not been a perfect movie, but it was a decent attempt at bringing Sonic into a proper movie that didn't replicate the plot 100%, but still managed to feel like a movie about Sonic the Hedgehog. The sequel is looking even more of an expansion on the games, setting its focus to what Sonic is all about rather than some random bullshit. So to say that video game movies can't be good would be a disservice to the people who want to make a video game movie done right. People said the same thing about comic book movies for the longest time, to the point that they almost had the same kind of reputation that video game movies have. Now, even in the mix of bad ones, we have plenty of great comic book movies today. So, who said the same can't happen for video game adaptation? It might sound needlessly optimistic, but it's something that I deem isn't impossible. As for the Mario movie, well, Nintendo is taking a crack at it later this year with that new animated movie. Whether or not it'll be good, only time will tell. But at least it sounds like it's going a more appropriate route with it being an animated film on the surface. But for better or for worse, the original Mario movie is deemed as a cult classic. And I can see why. I mean, look at all the memorable moments this film had. Well, memorable maybe, but not really good. If anything, this movie is seen as more so bad it's good for me. I view the original Mario movie in a similar vein as the Tom and Jerry movie. It's such a batshit insane movie that barely resembles what it's supposed to be, that it's an anomaly to witness. Though where Tom and Jerry at least somewhat attempted to make a movie that's vaguely resembles its source material, the same can't be said about Mario. It's so far removed that you really have to treat it as its own thing. But I guess being seen as its own thing, that's creatively weird and bizarre in its own right, is at least better than an adaptation that didn't even try to do anything unique from its source. So, take that for what it's worth.
If you're not watching the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, you're gonna turn into a Goomba.